meeting. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to begin. I'm really excited about this evening. We've got Jeffrey Prang, the LA County Assessor, and most of his office here. I've dealt with the Assessor's office a lot. I'm interested in this topic. We've also got a former San Marino Unified School Board member, Dr. Zheng Yan, whose daughter, just as a little trivia, I actually coached his daughter in her senior year of basketball at San Marino High School. Maybe she's still forgiven me. And with that, there are a couple of things I'd like to say before we get started this evening. But first, and because you showed up on time for this meeting, I'm going to announce that we are going to have our first live event on June 15th. Coincidentally, completely randomly, the day that mask mandates and restrictions are going to be lifted, I suppose, in the state of California. We're going to have our social event at the Old Mill. There will be some restrictions in place. It's on a first come, first served basis. You'll get an email announcing everything. I hope to see you in person. And honestly, I hope this is the last Zoom meeting that I ever attend because I'm a little zoomed out. Couple other things you need to know before we begin tonight's program. Your directories. I've got them at the printers and you should be receiving them shortly. And this is also the time of year where I pitch some of you to actually reach out and contact me if you're interested in serving on the nominating committee to choose next year's victims. I mean, board members, people who will work for the club and help you out. Couple other things that you should know. We've got some interesting announcements. One regarding the school board. We've got Michael Throne, who I'm excited to talk about some things happening in the city. And last but not least, kind of a preview, San Diego resident and NBA Hall of Famer Andy Bernstein will be our first in-person speaker in September. So I look forward to an interesting evening, and I look forward to seeing you in person shortly. So with that, I'd like to ask Calvin to lead us in the flag salute.
Thank you. And please stand and place your right hand over heart, and let's pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please sit down.
All right, thanks, Calvin. Let's see, how do I want to do this? Because we got some last minute changes. I guess the first person I am going to announce is Lewis, who will introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Kelly. He's the Director of Public Works and the City Engineer for the City of San Marino. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Michael Throne.
Well, thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you, fellow members of the City Club. I'm here this evening, not as your Director of Parks and Public Works and City Engineer, but as your Acting Community Services Director. I have the distinct honor and pleasure to be working with the great folks that do our city recreation and those that manage our library. So I have just some summer offerings, some tantalizing programming that the city is planning to do over the next several months through the summer. Some of these programs are still a little bit up in the air. Things have been changing quite rapidly. And as Kelly mentioned, things are going to be changing a lot on June 15th, but right now it's not there yet. If we can go to the first slide, Hunter, that would be great. Thank you. So in the big picture, City Hall and the library are opening on June 1st. We expect that there will be limited attendance in the library, probably somewhere around 100 people during the day. And at least for the first several weeks, we're only going to be open 5 days a week and not have any Saturday or Sunday service as we assess our situation, check to make sure that everything is in the right order for folks coming in, and also start to restaff again. But in the meantime, we have a lot of outdoor activities. Obviously, Memorial Day is coming up on the 31st, and that will be at 9 a.m. at Lacey Park. We also have a hometown veterans display. These are living soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine Corps, Coast Guard folks who reside in San Marino, and we like to honor them. We have a Father's Day event that we're still trying to craft, but we have a little bit of time before that. A concert in the courtyard is going to be some programming that we're going to do at the library. And then we're going to have a series of pop-up events for July 4th. Recently, the City Council really made a very difficult choice on their end to not have a full-blown 4th of July. And that's primarily due to the fact that we really could not have and host an event like the city is accustomed to. So what we're going to do instead, leading up to the 4th of July, is have a series of pop-up events starting on June 14th all the way through the first part of July. There'll be some home decorating kits. We did that last year. It was very successful. There'll be some giveaways, some crafts. We're going to be doing some inflatable tube people. I have no idea what that is, but I know that the rec folks are very excited about it, and they're extremely creative, as you've seen. But there's going to be some Starbucks giveaways that we're planning on doing, some patriotic bling and book bags at the library and at the park. Let's see what else here. There's going to be a Kona truck shave ice giveaway at the park. That will be coming up on June 30th. And then on July 1st, there's going to be, in lieu of real firecrackers, there's going to be firecracker popsicles and face masks and beach balls and a lot of great stuff, some police giveaways, and those kinds of things are going to be done at the park. If you could go to the next slide, please, Hunter. All right. Hunter's running the tech for me, so I really appreciate that. Some other things that will be going on after the 4th of July, as I mentioned, this is all in the planning program. We were able to get our aquatics program. That will start on July 1st. We were able to reach a good agreement with the school district. They were also unsure as to what things were going to be allowed and not allowed, but we've managed to make that happen. Concerts in the Park is a program that will be going on. We're going to be having a national night out on a Friday instead of its regular program day. We're going to be doing that in conjunction with concerts at the park. So that's going to be a very fabulous event. I'm very much looking forward to that. We're going to have senior happy hours. And then, as you see, all summer, we're going to have a bunch of programs as well as some barbecue and grilling courses. I've been told that they're very excited about having those kinds of activities through the rest of the summer. So as we get reacquainted with normal life, your community services department is leading the charge, at least in the outdoors things. And if we can go to the last slide, our activities guide is online, and that can be found at the city's website. And then our two divisions, our recreation division and our Kroll Public Library division, if you ever need to get a hold of them. I'm very excited about working with this group. I've worked with them before. Your community services group is absolutely fantastic. The city is actively recruiting for a permanent community services director, and I'm very optimistic that we'll have one toward the end of the summer. And that concludes the taste of what's going to be happening this summer in San Marino.
Thanks, Michael. That's a pretty healthy taste, if I don't say so myself. We got lots of things. I'm glad to see the city is on the same page as City Club, and we're all opening up and getting back to hopefully normal activity. And with that, Jim, you'll introduce our new member.
Thank you, Kelly. My name is Jim Tripodis, and I'm a co-membership chair with Susan Jacobowski. And tonight, I would like to formally introduce and celebrate our newest member, Jean-Pierre Menguay. And I hope I'm pronouncing his last name properly. If not, maybe he can correct me next time I see him. And Jean-Pierre likes to be called JP for short. Currently, he resides in South Pasadena. and his spouse's name is Barbara. JP's birth date is August 29th, so we should keep that in mind. When we get closer to his birthday, we can all wish him a happy birthday. JP was born in Paris, France, and became a US citizen in 2015. He has a PhD in mathematics from the University of Paris, Pierre and Marie Curie. So a pretty bright fellow, to say the least. Worked in the high-tech industry with Hewlett-Packard and also in biotech with Amgen in Thousand Oaks. Currently, JP is retired, and he was introduced to the club and sponsored by Isaac Hung. Thank you so much, Isaac, and welcome aboard, JP. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Jim. Excellent. And JP, who I know and I've spoken to a couple of times, look forward to seeing you, hopefully at the Old Mill. Next up on our agenda, and we're moving right along, is Dr. Stephen Choi, who's got an announcement and will introduce our next speaker. Stephen.
Thank you, Kelly. Good evening, City Club. Well, I have the honor of presenting an update from the school district, and on behalf of Dr. Wilson, our superintendent. It's been a lot of changes this year, and an exciting change that is happening right now is the San Marino Unified School District Board has a vacant seat to fill. So I encourage City Club members, residents of San Marino within the school district to consider taking an application, looking over the application and submitting one. The application is actually on our website now. The vacancy was due to a resignation of our vice president of the board, Mr. Corey Barbary, who will be moving out of state. So creates an opportunity for those that may be interested in serving. The application is open today and will be open through June 4th at noon. And there will be a number of meetings after June 4th where the public will have an opportunity to provide public comment and just to be part of the process in terms of selecting a candidate to fill that seat. So again, I encourage City Club members to help us get the word out to have others apply for the board seat. And then speaking of the board, I'd like to now transition to our one of our 10-minute speakers, Mr. Dr. Yen. Dr. Yen and I go way back. I recall working together on the Technology Advisory Committee, and I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Yen. Dr. Yen received his Bachelor of Science from the National Tsinghua University and completed and earned his doctorate of PhD in applied math from the University of Iowa. And Dr. Yen has served as a mentor to the San Marino High School first competition, robotics competition, for many, many years. And I know he was very active at our high school and continues to serve in that capacity. And of course, Dr. Yen was a former board member for the San Marino Unified School District. So I introduce you to Dr. Yen.
Thank you, Stephen. First of all, I'm very glad to come back, talk to the City Club people here. Today, I want to spend a few minutes talk about what I'm doing. I'm still at JPL. Yes, I haven't retired yet. So the big news in JPL is certainly we just landed a rover on Mars. Perseverance landed February 18th. So today we just finished we call Sol 85 planning, which means the rover stayed on Mars for 85 sols, 85 days on Mars. And during that time, what we did is we basically drove the rover to about 400 or 500 meters. But the most exciting thing is the rover delivered a helicopter called Ingenuity to Mars. And this little helicopter, about 4-pound weight, flew 5 times on Mars. So this is the first time human human have a flying saucer on a planet, right? So this is we are pretty excited about it. The helicopter fly is exceeding all the expectation of JPL designer and the engineer to create this helicopter. So if you're following the news, this is all over the place. To me, the helicopter is represent a different era. I remember when I was on the board, I give a talk or graduation commencement talk about kids shouldn't locking their future work early, because the dream job of theirs probably not yet exist. My example is driving a Mars rover. That's just didn't exist even 20 some years ago. So now the kids can say, hey, if I want to pilot a drone on Mars, that might be a new job category. So this is pretty exciting. So the mission for Perseverance is to get the sample from Mars and bring it back to Earth in a later time. This is the first leg of this sample return mission. So it will be another about 2 years, 2 Earth years to finish sampling at least 20 sample, put in the tube, and then later time, there's another spacecraft to go there to grab those samples and send it back to Earth. So it's the first leg of this very complicated mission. I'm so glad we did the first leg, and at least in a sort of a close to perfect fashion to land it and flew the helicopter. If you're following the news, the helicopter, after its 5th flight, we only planned for 5th flight for the helicopter, but then because helicopters still have a fully charged, and is still capable of flying. So in the next month, we're still going to use the helicopter as a scout, or doing the scouting for rover. That's sort of give. We want to test out how do we going to use a helicopter in the future. So this is the current status of the rover, and so I'm going to transition to the next topic. I know City Club is going to give a big check to Seminole High School robotic team, and I myself funded the robotic team, but with a lot of help from the community. Specifically, I remember Lauren Climerock. He was the high school principal, and first couple of years, or 3 years or so, we start with building the robot. So the Seminole High School robotic team actually is entering a competition called First Robotic Competition. And this is a yearly event. Nowadays, you can go to 2 or 3 this kind of event. Back then, we just entered the LA regional. We started with building the robot in somebody's home or somebody's garage. And because I was at some point become the board member of Seminole High School, so I think Lauren sees some value of building this extracurricular activity in high school is valuable. So, he very generously arranged some plays in high school so kids can get together, build the robot, and gradually, I think the robotic team become a very popular club in high school. And I think parents and teachers and administrators all be very supportive to this club. So thanks, Lauren. I saw your name on the attending list. So, and I saw familiar name, Coach Ryan. And hi, everybody. So I'm out. If you have any question about the rover or something, you can send an email to me, or please follow the news. I think this is quite exciting for US to have this like cutting edge technology, on Mars and doing the sort of a fantastic thing. All right.
Thanks, Zheng Yan. Really
Kelly?
appreciate it. My
Kelly?
regards, Deidre. Yeah, Lauren?
Could I get 2 minutes to interject here?
Of course.
Lauren.
It's important.
Well, that would be different.
Yeah, well, all right, put the stopwatch on. First of all, Jing doesn't brag too much about himself, but what I remember about Jing, with respect to robotics, the only thing I had to do is get out of his way. But with respect to Jing, he and a woman he worked with at Caltech came to me and they said, you know what? We have a serious brain drain in this country and we need to do something about it. San Bernardino kids are the kind of kids we need to get into science and engineering. And so they created a program, I think, Jang, remind me if I'm wrong, Frontier Science Series, I think is what it was. And they arranged actually, and this doesn't happen at high schools, it was either 3 or 4 Nobel Prize winners who came separately to address the student body. We had Jing's own Mars, I think, chair, whatever they call it, a director at that time. We had an astrophysicist, world famous astrophysicist who wasn't a Nobel Prize winner, but nonetheless, our kids got exposed to this stuff. And it's because he, and I'm sorry, Jane, I don't remember her name, but they came and said, we need to have this. And so we had it. And that's why I'll opine here. Sorry if I offend anybody. This concept that the California Department of Education has come out with it, we should not have kids trying to take advanced courses like calculus and other sciences, because that puts too much of a learning gap between them and other students. To me, that doesn't work. My last point is Edward Yin. If you're the Edward Yin I'm thinking about, if you want to chime in with which high school you went to, I'll know whether I'm on the right track or not.
Yes, Coach Kleinrock, that's me.
Edward was quite a football player in his day and quite a nice guy. And obviously he had brains. He's not the stereotypical offensive lineman. That's it, I'm done.
Okay, this is the first time in the history of my relationship with Lauren Kleinrock that his interruption was worth it. So appreciate that, Lauren. I appreciate it, Jang, that you are here. And Edward, nice to see you again as well. So with that, I'm going to, because Jang kind of previewed this, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Houston for our big check presentation. Take it away, Bob.
Thank you. As Dr. Yen gave a preface, it's our honor to give $500 to Titanium Robotics, otherwise known as Team 1160. It's one of the most beloved teams on campus. My understanding, it's about 100 very, very bright kids, and it's a pleasure to give $500 to their activities. This comes from the supplemental dues that many of our members are generous to contribute to, and we've almost done this annually now, so it's a pleasure to get this $500 check to Titanium Robotics. Thank you.
All right, and thank you, Bob, for doing that. And again, thank you, Jing, for your presentation and update. It's good to see you again. And with that, we're going to turn over to the main part of our program, which I'm, as I said, very excited about. And I'd like to introduce Calvin, who will introduce our feature speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. It's my honor to introduce our speaker today, our Los Angeles County Assessor, Mr. Jeffrey Prang. Jeff was raised in Warren, Michigan, and is a graduate of Michigan State University. After graduation, Mr. Prang relocated to California, where he served nearly 18 years as a council member for the city of West Hollywood, including 4 terms as a mayor, among many other positions in the public sector. And Jeffrey Prang was elected in 2004 as the 27th assessor for the county of Los Angeles and was re-elected in 2018. And upon taking office in 2014 as the county assessor, Mr. Prang implemented sweeping reforms to ensure the strictest ethical guidelines rooted in fairness and accuracy and integrity would be adhered to his office. Mr. Prang is a state board equalization licensed appraiser and administers the largest office of its kind in the nation with 1,200 employees that provides the foundation for the property tax system that generates over $17 billion annually. And without further ado, Mr. Jeffrey Prang.
Thank you very much, Kelvin, for that kind introduction. And it's great to be with you this evening. I want to thank Kelly Ryan for stating the obvious, that it's going to be an exciting evening, because what better way to add a little bit of life into your program than hearing a speech from the county property tax assessor. But I want to also thank Isaac Hung and Hunter Cheng for helping to organize this meeting. I also want to give a shout out to one of my department heads, Eddie Yen, who helped facilitate this meeting as well. I always like to begin any speech that I give by not only telling you what the assessor's office does, but as importantly, what the assessor does not do. The one thing I do not do that everybody thinks I do is collect taxes. I don't collect taxes. There's another guy who does that. He's got a very intuitive title. He's called the tax collector. For those who don't know, as the assessor, I am one of 3 countywide elected officials. I administer a department of nearly 1,200 employees located in 6 different locations throughout the county. We're the largest local assessment agency in the United States, responsible for valuing over 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments annually, which last year were valued at nearly $1.8 trillion. Oh, I forgot to say, there are 2 other countywide elected officials other than me. The other 2 are much better known, and that is the sheriff and the district attorney. So let me begin by talking about an issue that's current right now and on a lot of people's minds. That deals with Proposition 19. Proposition 19 was a measure that was adopted by the voters last November that does a couple of changes to Proposition 13. I'll start by saying that even though the measure is now in full effect, it was effective as of April 1st, there remain a number of significant administrative challenges for Prop 19 from the view of the administrators, which are assessors. So if you don't know much about Prop 19, what Prop 19 did do is it changed the law. It allowed senior citizens, the disabled, and victims of natural disaster to transfer their property tax basis with them when they move. They can transfer up to 3 times anywhere in the state of California, and they can purchase a home of any value. This is much different than the previous law, which only allowed them to move once and only within a number of participating counties, and had to be to a home of equal or lesser value. So this adds a whole lot more alternatives to seniors and the disabled. There's another component that deals with what we call intergenerational transfers. This is essentially a parent to child, or in some cases, a grandparent to grandchild. It changes the law and actually reduces the benefits that used to be available for these interfamily transfers. Under the previous law known as Proposition 58, you could give your property, your home to your children. The home could be of any value, and it would not be subject to reassessment. You could also give your child up to $1 million in other property that would not be subject to reassessment. Under Prop 19, there's a few new conditions. One, the only property that can be transferred with the tax base to your children is your primary residence. No other property now qualifies. Secondly, your child or grandchild must make that home their primary residence within 1 year of the transfer in order to qualify to inherit the tax base. They also have to file for the homeowner's exemption within 1 year. Also, there is, for lack of a better word, there's a cap on how much value of that home can be transferred before there is a reassessment. So the rule of thumb, if your home is worth less than $1 million, the property will not be reassessed and your child would inherit that property and its existing tax base. If the property is worth more than $1 million, then there's a value comparison test applied. And essentially you're going to get a blended tax base. Part of that blend will be the inherited portion for the value under $1 million. And then there'll be a new market-based component for that exceeds $1 million. There's a number of challenges that Prop 19 imposes. One of them is that the measure was written without consulting with assessors, who are the administrators of property tax law. It was done in the final weeks of the legislative session, and it was really put together rather haphazardly. So there's enormous legal voids. There's a lack of clarity. There's deficiencies in the way the language is written, and assessors are really at a loss as to how to implement it. This is combined with the fact that they imposed a very aggressive implementation date. We conservatively believe it would have taken 12 to 18 months for us to re-coordinate our operations to administer Prop 19. Unfortunately, the ballot measure only gave us 3 months, and we're not ready. We need state legislation that will help clarify a number of these ambiguities and deficiencies. At the moment, we do not have state legislation, so the measure is in effect. So people are buying and selling property. They're coming to us for guidance, and we don't have any to offer. There is legislation pending. I just heard today that they are likely to put the amendments into legislation that we need to administer it, but it could still be a couple months away before we get that sort of guidance, which will mean that in the interim, folks purchasing and selling property will deal with a lot of uncertainty and confusion. Another challenge imposed by Prop 19 is the more abbreviated deadlines for filing to take advantage of this exclusion. As it relates to estate planning, one of the biggest issues we face from the public service perspective is that members of the public are simply not aware of what they need to do when a loved one passes. Generally speaking, you need to do two things. You need to file within 150 days what's known as a change in ownership, death of real property owner form with my office. And then you also have to file the Prop 19 parent to child exclusion. The challenge is virtually nobody knows that they have to do this. Most people miss the filing deadlines. It's not uncommon for folks to wait for more than 12 months before they contact us. And under Prop 58, the previous law, you could have up to 3 years to notify us that there has been a date of death transfer. However, under Prop 19, it's 12 months, and there is no wiggle room. You have to do all the things that's necessary to transfer that property within 12 months. Otherwise, you will lose the property tax benefit that would come along with that measure. To help untangle some of the confusion of Prop 19, we developed a special web page on our website dedicated to Prop 19. We put some tools on there to help you determine if your transfer of property or your transfer to your children is likely to result in a reassessment, there's a couple tools on there that will tell you what the approximately what the new property tax base will be. For instance, if you're selling your home in LA County and transferring your tax base to Ventura County, and you purchase a more expensive home, your property taxes will go up. There's a calculator on this that will tell you what that new adjusted property taxes will be. Same thing if you're transferring a home worth more than $1 million to your children. There's a tool on there that will help you determine what the new tax rate for your children will be. All you need is the address or the assessor's identification number and the estimated market value of the property. Because transferring property involves more than just property taxes, there's other considerations such as estate taxes, inheritance taxes. We put together a webinar, a guide to inheritance, to help talk about what some of those issues are when dealing with estate planning. We had estate planning experts, a CPA to provide some information. This webinar is on my website. And if you have questions about how estate planning may be impacted, I urge you to watch that webinar. And of course, the Assessor website is always a good resource to explore different tax savings programs. And I encourage you to look at our website sometime in the future when you get a chance. Let me change topics now and talk to you a little bit about some of our savings programs. We manage a lot of programs to help taxpayers save money on their property taxes, programs for seniors, veterans, the disabled, nonprofit organizations. The most popular one is what we call the homeowner's exemption. This allows anybody who owns their home and uses that home as their primary residence to save a little bit of money annually on their property tax bill by filing the homeowner's exemption. It's not a huge savings. It saves you about $70 a year. But in San Marino, for example, we estimate that about a third of all residents who qualify for the homeowner's exemption do not file. They're primarily not filing because they don't know about it. It's a one-time application. It renews automatically until there's a change in ownership. And the document for getting the homeowner's exemption is on my website. It's a very simple form. We do need to give us a wet signature and mail it in. That's still required, but I encourage you to file for it if you have not. I did reference in talking about Prop 19, and I mentioned about the death of a property owner. This is one of the biggest concerns that we have from members of the public who call us because their property was reassessed upon the death of a property owner. They simply don't know what the requirements are following the death of a property owner. As I said previously, we are required to be notified within 150 days of the date of death, although virtually nobody does that because people don't know that they're required to. But we also need to be notified how the property is going to be transferred to a child or a grandchild, and we need to be notified of that so we know what the intention for the ownership of the property is and can apply the appropriate exclusions. So we get thousands of calls a year from people who inherited property. They didn't know what they're supposed to do. Their property may have been in trust, and a lot of people believe that a trust protects them. It does not. A trust is simply a set of instructions as to what to do with the property. There are still obligations, such as filing these forms, that is required upon the death of a property owner. Let me move on. Another thing that comes up quite a bit deals with issues of new construction. People want to know when they're going to when their property is reassessed. The general rule is your property doesn't get reassessed. Your property is assessed at the time of acquisition, and it's not reassessed except on two circumstances. One is there's a change in ownership, such as adding or deleting a name from the deed, or doing new construction. And the rule of thumb on new construction is adding square footage. So if you are doing a kitchen remodel, a bathroom remodel, typically if you're just replacing what's there, that is not reassessable. But if you are building an ADU or adding a pool or enclosing a porch, it is though that new construction would be reassessable. When you file a building permit with the city is required to provide us with copies of those building permits. We then evaluate those permits to determine if it's a reassessable event. And if it is, your property taxes will be adjusted. We do not reassess the entire property, just that additional square footage. So you would have your original base year from when you purchased the property and its tax rate, and then another tax rate for that additional square footage of new construction. And before we go to the question and answer section, I just want to give you a really quick update on the real estate market. As you may or may not know, the primary job of the assessor is the production of the annual assessment roll, which is essentially the inventory of all taxable property in the county. In 2019, 2020, the assessment roll grew at almost 6%, representing the 10th consecutive year of property value growth in the county since the recession of 2008 to 2010. We are expecting, despite the COVID-19 induced recession, to see positive growth in property values countywide in the current assessment roll now being prepared, although it will be much slower than it was last year. San Marino has contributed significantly to the 2020 assessment roll, experienced growth of about 4.2% over its 2019 valuation. FYI, there's about 4,700 taxable parcels in San Marino, 4,500 of which are single-family residential homes. One of the things that happened over the course of the last year is that the real estate market, the residential real estate market, fared relatively well. Median sales prices for single-family homes rose over 15% to an all-time high of $775,000 countywide. San Marino does a little bit better than that. Median sales price as of March was $2.2 million, which is an 11.5% increase over a year ago. In fact, one of the largest homes in the city is currently listed in San Marino for $21.5 million. I think there's some discussion that that should be acquired by the government and made to the new official residence of the county assessor. The significant increase in the median sales price across the county is due largely due to two variables. One of them is very, very low inventory. People weren't selling, so there was a lot of competition for that inventory that was available, and also the historically low mortgage rates. We're expecting to have major disruptions in the market due to COVID, particularly on commercial properties. Hotels, restaurants, retail are likely to be significantly affected, and we're anticipating an increase in assessment appeals and a decline in value applications this year. If you're a property owner, it's important to know how to file a decline in value application. A decline in value means that the current market value of your property is less than the current assessed value of your property. And the assessed value is more or less what you paid for it plus the annual cost of living adjustment. You can start filing decline value applications as of July 2nd. And we are expecting to see some reduction in values on commercial properties. So that pretty much wraps up my update. I think I've talked a long time about quite a bit of material. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you and share this information and tell you a little bit about my office and the role that it plays in local government. And I'm happy to stop at this point and take any questions. I do have on the screen, that's my email address and office phone number. If you have questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us. We also have a monthly newsletter where we send out helpful tips for homeowners and property owners. I urge you to register for that and stay informed with our office. But thank you again, and I'm happy to take questions if that's appropriate.
And it is. While I'm waiting for some questions to roll in, I do have a couple of questions about just the form-based nature of the assessor's office and why at this point we haven't got electronic filing for many of these things. I know that there's been an overhaul. When do you anticipate that we'll be able to file the basic common forms, such as preliminary change in ownership reports, the parent to child exclusion, the homeowner's exemption?
A very good question, and let me give you a little bit more background than you probably asked for. So, when I was elected in 2014, I inherited what was largely a paper-based organization. Our technology platform was a 1970s mainframe, green screen, DOS-based technology platform. Our appraisers had to access one of a half a dozen different green screens to get different types of information. If you called my office about your property, you could be shuffled around to a number of different offices until we got to that office where your property file was kept. The 2.5 million property parcels in LA County were each still associated with a paper file. And I launched a modernization program. We are upgrading our technology platform. It's a $100 million upgrade. We digitized all of our property files. They're now all available to our employees online, and it's created great efficiencies and enhancements in workflow. It's also allowed us to consolidate all this information on our outward-facing databases, including our website and our property data portal. So a lot of this information that you used to have to call to get is now available for free on our website. We are still building the system. We got about another 12 months before this overhaul is done. A lot of workflow products, such as these forms that need to be turned in, many of them will be made available online in a downloadable and electronic submission format. There are some legal barriers to that. There's some things like the homeowner's exemption. The State Board of Equalization establishes policies on forms and how they're to be handled. We need to get authorization to accept electronic signatures in order to put those online, but we are moving that direction. I think probably in the next 12 months, you'll start seeing some of those changes, because you raise an issue, which is a problem. We have employees dealing with homeowners exemptions or PCORs, and they've got paper on their desks that are piled mountains high. It's just a really inefficient way of doing things, and I'm determined to let technology do its wonder and make it easier for all of us, both inside the office as well as for members of the public.
Isaac, when he scheduled this, said that I could have like unlimited questions.
Sure.
So until somebody else asks one, I've got a couple more. So one of the biggest questions I think that many of our residents have is, how does the assessor's office determine the value for a supplemental assessment on new construction?
So for new construction, like an ADU or enclosed porch, is that accurate?
Yeah, or additional footage too.
So additional square footage, we will generally apply what's called the cost methodology of construction. There are three approaches to evaluating property. Mostly when you're buying and selling homes, we look at market comparisons. When we're looking at building unique properties like a stadium, that might be a cost approach. When we're evaluating things like a hotel or apartment buildings, we would use an income-based approach to valuation. When you're doing new construction at your home, we use the cost approach. And it's important to keep in mind that we do not use your cost. We use regional standards. We use industry standard guide called Marshall and Swift. There are regional costs based on the quality of construction, the type of construction being completed. So we will evaluate what you pay, but what you pay and your cost is not the only determining factor in determining the cost of that new construction.
Excellent. And then, unless another panelist has a question, I'll ask my final question, which has to do with just the implementation of Prop 19. Do you foresee that there'll be waivers for some of the requirements in order to obtain the benefits of Prop 19, specifically the 150-day notice requirement?
I don't believe so. It's a constitutional amendment, and in order to fix some of those deficiencies, we may have to go back to the ballot. This was discussed in today was actually our legislative day. We had a bunch of Zoom calls with legislators. This issue did come up. It's possible that the legislature could try to interpret that as they develop this clarifying legislation. But they did such a I mean, candidly, they did such a bad job of writing this measure. It's a dumpster fire, and it's going to take several years for us to work out all the kinks. I imagine we're going to be coming back to the voters, going back to the legislature to find a clarification on this. But I can tell you that as the assessor, as an administrator, I don't have the authority or the jurisdiction to interpret what the measure says. I rely on the Board of Equalization and the legislature to do that. I will tell you, I am profoundly frustrated with this measure and how long it's taking to get us guidance, because obviously you're in the business and you know people are engaged in these transactions today, and we don't have answers for them. And I think the public needs to have those answers.
Yeah, I agree. The fact that it was hidden in a wildlife bill is equally confounding. However, that's my editorial for this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Isaac Hung because I don't see any additional questions. Isaac, to you.
Yes, Kelly. Actually, Jeff, I have a final question also. Why is the county assessor an elected position, whereas the tax collector are not?
Good question. It is the California Constitution requires that the assessor, the district attorney, and the sheriff be elected. And you probably heard recently, there's a lot of discussion on whether the sheriff should be elected or not. But here's one reason. I'm not a defender of keeping it elected or coming up with some other arrangement. But here's one thing that's very important about having independence in the office of the assessor. So about 30 years ago, I was a young staffer in the office of the assessor, and it was about 1992, 93. And that was the first time the economy crashed post Prop 19, or Prop 13, and property values fell. Under the law, the assessor is required to lower the assessed value of property if the market value falls beneath the assessed value. And that happened all across LA County. Well, the Board of Supervisors and the management of the county was very concerned about this, because if the assessor lowered those values, they would therefore lower property tax revenue. And had the assessor not been elected, they probably could have given directives, or at least massaged orders to the assessor to keep those values elevated to protect their budget. And that would be unethical, it'd be illegal. It's not what the law says. Having an elected assessor to ensure that the fair and equitable administration of the property tax system is not being politically manipulated for revenue purposes or any other purposes is really important.
Thank you. So we appreciate you coming to our club and sharing information that is very helpful. So we hope that we can continue to receive any updated information. And thank you so much for your assistance, as well as Jackie and Ed. And I think we have one more. We do have Robert. So thank you all for taking your time, sharing and helping the information to us. So remember to visit www.assessors.lacounty.gov for any information. With that, I just wanted to also thank Dr. Yen to come in and sharing some very interesting information on the Mars rover and the helicopter, as well as Michael Throne sharing with us on all the update on the city facilities. And just in case if you missed our President Kelly's comments in the beginning, we do have an upcoming in-person event that will be held on Tuesday, June 15th at Old Mill. Stay tuned for more details on the exciting summer fiesta social for this city club. So that is Tuesday, June 15th. And we also will have a very exciting September speaker. That will be the NBA Hall of Fame photographer Andrew Bernstein. So with the closing remark by our President Kelly. Brian. Kelly.
Thanks, Isaac. And again, thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to the County Assessor's Office and your team for showing up. Jeff, that was the most interesting presentation on Prop 19 I've ever had. So thank you again for coming this evening. Jeng, it was nice to see you as always. And Michael, you're always welcome to present at our events. Just kind of final thoughts here. I do thank you for working with Lauren and myself for this past year and almost a half as we've adopted to Zoom. Hopefully you'll get a better feel for City Club events. And so for all of you who've been watching, I thank you and appreciate the time that you spent with us. But tell your friends that the City Club is coming back, and we're coming back more exciting than ever. I do also want to kind of follow up on a couple of things that were said this evening. Most importantly, the City Club depends on the participation of its members. And one of the most important things you can do is consider filling that open school board seat. We have a lot of very qualified people in the city, and I think this would be an excellent time for service. So as Dr. Choi said, go visit the website. There's an application and get involved. Last, my public appeal again, if you're interested in serving on the nominating committee to choose and select members of the board of directors, I would certainly appreciate it. You can always reach out to me by email in the directory you're going to get. And then finally, last but not least, see you at the old mill. Details to follow. And until June 15th, peace out. Bye, y'all. Thank you.